Hi everyone. So it's another month. We are talking about May. And May is a pretty big month in terms of the astrology. We begin eclipse season because we have a lunar eclipse later in the month. And then we also have Mercury retrograde coming up. Plus, there's also a pretty big sign change with a planet. And just overall, it's a month of kind of navigating and finding your way, maybe some new changes or unexpected surprises. But there's an undercurrent of hope, of building a foundation, of making strides to get to where we want to go. We just kind of have to be willing to be flexible and roll with the energy, right? So let's just kind of dive in, and I'm going to go chronologically through May and tell you kind of the highlights. And of course, I'm not going to go super deep into any of these transits. I will go deeper into them as they come up during the weekly astrology. So first up, right at the beginning of the month, on May 3rd, we have our last quarter moon in Aquarius. And so a last quarter moon is all about releasing and letting go. And then Aquarius wants to innovate and make improvements, especially for the greater good or the local community. It's definitely a mindset of us instead of me or I. And with this last quarter moon in Aquarius, we might feel a little bit of tension because this is a square between the moon and the sun is what happens when you have a last quarter moon. And so we may feel a little bit of tension between the moon that's in Aquarius and all about the greater good and making improvements in technology, and our need for kind of physical, sensual pleasure because the sun will be in Taurus. And so if you want to try to weave these energies together, you can kind of look at how you can use Aquarius energy working together, coming together, technological advancements. How can you use that to make our physical world, our natural world, a better place? Also on the 3rd, Mercury will move into Gemini. So Mercury is very at home. Gemini is one of the home signs of Mercury. So Mercury feels very happy here. Our communications just flow. We really feel more open to talking with others, to sharing with others. We find it's easier to connect, and we just overall feel more social. On the 8th, Venus will follow suit and will also enter Gemini. And so this means we find our pleasure, Venus, in things like learning, communicating, reading, anything to do with the mind, and, like improving the mind, challenging the mind, all that kind of Gemini Mercury things. Venus comes in and says, I now find pleasure in this. I now find pleasure in using my mind, expanding my mind, and challenging my mind. On the 11th of May, we have our new moon in Taurus. And this new moon is not an eclipse, but it is the new moon, it's the new moon prior to our full moon eclipse later in the month. And so this technically kicks off eclipse season, this new moon, where after, on and around and after this new moon, we will start to feel the energy build of eclipse season, where, eclipse season, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I promise I'll circle back. But eclipse season just kind of heralds change. It's this portal of change that sometimes can be very intense or very rapid. And if you're sensitive, you often will find yourself probably feeling this change and feeling this buildup of energy. It's that, to me, it feels, the best way I can describe it is if you're ever outside before a thunderstorm rolls in, and you can feel it. You feel that change in the air. Maybe it's the wind's picking up and the temperature's dropped, and you kind of feel the static in the air. That's a good analogy for eclipse season as we are building up to an eclipse. But in particular, this new moon in Taurus is all going to be about physical comfort and grounding, making sure we are building from a solid foundation, making sure we are building from a place of stability and structure. Because a new moon is a time where we set intentions, right? It's a new beginning, it's a fresh start. And in Taurus wants to make sure we feel safe, that we are, we're not acting rashly, we're not responding quickly, but instead we are responding from a grounded place, that we are making sure our foundation is strong and secure before we build on top of it. And so this is a really good time, this new moon, to set the foundations of something you want to bring in or change in your life. Also, you might find that you have a really deep connection, and I'll go more in depth into this new moon when it comes up during the weekly astrology, but just wanted to highlight here, you might find you have a really deep connection around this new moon to your sense of spirituality, your sense of faith, your sense of your own sovereignty, that helps you build that foundation. On the 13th of May, Jupiter will enter Pisces. And so this transit's a little tricky because Jupiter will only be in Pisces for 11 weeks because of Jupiter retrograde, which will begin in June. So I don't want to go too down the rabbit hole into all of that, but just know for now, for May, starting on the 13th, Jupiter will enter Pisces. And Jupiter, is the planet of expansion, it's growth, it's optimism, it's joy, it's abundance. And Pisces is all about dreams and creativity. And so you might find that your creative muse is a little easier to have a conversation with, especially because, we already have Mercury and Venus in Gemini, and the Sun will be moving into Gemini in a few days after this. So you might find it easier to converse with your inner muse once Jupiter enters Pisces. The 19th will be our first quarter moon in Leo. So this is just a time to kind of look at the intention you set on the new moon and see if you need to make any adjustments or changes or what actions you need to take to help yourself get closer to that intention you set. And then I've already mentioned this, but on the 20th of May, the Sun will enter Gemini and begin Gemini season. So happy birthday to all the Geminis. In Gemini season, our focus turns on to how we think, how we communicate. It's easier for us to multitask. It's easier for us to absorb information, to communicate information. We may find ourselves, speaking of multitasking, kind of going, oh, I want to learn this. Oh, I want to learn this. Oh, I want to learn this. And just not overwhelmed, but perhaps overwhelmed, but just kind of really delighted by the opportunities you have in front of you. On the 23rd, Saturn retrograde will begin, and that's just a time. It's an outer planet. We don't feel it as deeply, but it's just important to kind of note in the back of your mind. And it's just a time where overall we are all reviewing our responsibilities, how we structure our day and our time, what our priorities are, reviewing our roles in life, mistakes we've made, and the lessons we've learned. On the 26th, we will have our full moon lunar eclipse in Sagittarius. And so by this point, you will probably have been feeling the energy build from the new moon to this eclipse. And again, I will go more into detail on this eclipse when it comes up in the weekly astrology, but just to sum it up here, Sagittarius is the truth teller of the zodiac. And if you think of the symbol of Sagittarius, it's the archer or the bow and arrow, right? And so here we find with an eclipse, a full moon eclipse, that we may find a truth be revealed. Full moons illuminate or reveal, especially if they are eclipsed. They're kind of supercharged. So we may find a truth be revealed. It may be our truth. It may be someone else's truth. It's probably a truth we can't turn away from. It is an eclipse after all. It's a truth we will have to reckon with, recognize, deal with in some way. It's not something we can ignore. So this may be a time where perhaps something is being revealed to us that's causing us to shift our beliefs. That's also very Sagittarius. Beliefs in spirituality. What is your core truth? So you might have some new information be revealed to you at this time. But just a few days later, 3 days later, in fact, Mercury retrograde begins. And so this is kind of perfect because Mercury retrograde is a time to step back a little bit where you can, to review your communications, review your thought processes, review the information you have on hand. In my opinion, retrogrades, they're all reviews, right? They're all times to review whatever the archetype of that planet is that is retrograde. And these are important because none of us can just go through our lives and just barrel through and just keep going forward without pausing and reflecting and reviewing, because that's how we assimilate and integrate information. That's how we learn valuable nuggets of wisdom from the lessons and things that have occurred in our life. And so retrogrades are beautiful moments of time. They're like little pockets of time almost that give us an opportunity to review whatever that theme of that planet is, so we can grow and get closer to, our higher self. And so Mercury retrograde comes just a few days on the heels of the full moon lunar eclipse in Sagittarius to give us an opportunity to integrate whatever information was illuminated for us at the eclipse, so we can decide what to do with it. We can learn from it. And then we end the month with Mars trine Neptune on the 31st, which Mars is our action and energy and ambition, and Neptune is illusions and intuition and spirituality. And so this is a really good time to act with your intuition, to weave your intuition in however you kind of make your plans for your day or your week. So that is a summary of May, the month ahead. I hope you found this helpful, and stay tuned because I will be back every week of the upcoming month to break down the astrology of each week so you can plan with the cosmos for more flow and ease in your day.